Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler. I'm your host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. Welcome here today. And of course, welcome back. I'm glad you're tuning in. It's important to me. It's an honor that I'm able to share ideas and insights and conversations with incredible men that I hope serve you in some capacity as a man, as a father, husband, leader in your community, owners of businesses, brothers, friends, coaches, mentors, etc., etc. We're going to talk about a very important topic today. We're going to talk about the immense power of brotherhood. Guys, it is so crucial that we find other high quality, high achieving, noble, ambitious, virtuous men to band with, to surround ourselves with, to partner in business with, and to form relationships with. I've had periods of my life where I've had some incredible men in my life, and I've had periods of my life where I've isolated and done it alone. And I can tell you, life is always better when there's other men in your corner, rooting for you, cheering for you, in the arena, battling and fighting with you. And so what I want to talk with you about today is why this is so important. And we're going to talk about 5 or 6 key things to look for in building this brotherhood that you're looking for. And then the second part of our conversation is going to be centered around how do you find other guys like you who are motivated, ambitious, righteous, virtuous, capable, driven men who you can partner with from a platonic friendship type level all the way to business relationships and everything in between. Now, before I get into that, I want to do a shameless plug real quick. You can see I've got a new beanie on. This is our brand new fisherman beanie. You can pick this up in the store at store.orderofman.com. That's at store.orderofman.com. We've got this is the rust color. We've got a yellow one. We've got a green one. We've got a blue one. We've got a black one. We've got a red one. We've got brand new hoodies, 3 iterations of hoodies. We've got some new jackets coming soon. We've got 2 new t-shirts that are available. We have 2 new hats that are available. So I'm building the store back out. I made a post on Instagram several months ago that I want to build this into the store alone, a 7-figure business. So I've been investing tens of thousands of dollars in inventory because I like it. And also it's going to help us grow the movement. And I think you guys want to support what we're doing here. So it's a good way to support what we're doing and get something that you can wear that's practical this fall anyways. So check it out at store.orderofman.com. And also in the spirit of our conversation today, I've got my Montana Knife Company water bottle. This is the Blood Brothers water bottle. This is for anybody who has spilled blood in a hunt using Montana Knife Company knives. So they're doing some really cool things. They're friends and partners of mine. Go check them out at montanaknifecompany.com. And if you get a water bottle, or a knife or a hoodie or a shirt or a whatever, use the code Order of Man at checkout and you're going to save some money. That helps you save some money. It lets them know that you're finding them through our platform here. All right. Store.orderofman.com. montanaknifecompany.com. Use the code Order of Man. There you go. Enough of the shameless plugs. Let's talk about this immense power of brotherhood. As I said, there's been times in my life where I've isolated. In fact, I did that over the past 1.5 to 2 years ago, and it wasn't good. It wasn't healthy. Many of you know my story, turning to alcoholism, the unfortunate and inevitable demise of my 18-year marriage, not only because I isolated, there was other elements of it, but I'm telling you, not having a good group of a core group of men that I could turn to, I believe exacerbated the problem. So I isolated. I acted as if nobody understood my struggles. I pretended that I could do it alone, and clearly I couldn't. And you hear a lot of these tough guys talking online and social media about how they can do it on their own. And, you know, I hope they can. I really do, for the sake of their own health. But the reality just paints an entirely different story. And I think many of you listening know this. There is an epidemic of male loneliness. There's been studies. There was a study, and I can't cite that exactly right now. I can look it up, or you can later, that suggested that the overwhelming respondents of this study said that they didn't even have not one male friend they could call in time of need or crisis. How sad is that? We're connected to the world, to the planet, unlike any other time in history. And yet the majority of respondents said they don't even have one person they could call in time of crisis. We need to do better because our lives depend on it. Our mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health depend on it. And also the lives of the people that we have a responsibility for. If we're not acting to the degree that we can, and we're not living as fully as we can as men, our friends and our family members and our colleagues and coworkers are going to be negatively impacted by that. So not only is it for the sake of ourselves, it's also for the sake of the people that we're trying to serve and lead. So let's talk about this. Number one, we're going to look for people. These are virtues and characteristics that we're going to look for in our band of brothers. Number one is you want to find somebody that you can trust, right? Get a notepad out. Trustworthiness is paramount and crucial, because if you can't trust somebody to confide in, to maybe share some of your most inner, most darkest secrets and desires or fears, because you're worried they're going to go blab and run their mouth and talk to other people, that's not a band of brothers type guy. That's not band of brother material, because you can't share. You're not fully able to be as vulnerable as you need to be with other guys so that you can talk about real issues, not just what's going on with your fantasy football team. I don't want to talk about fantasy football. Sure, do it. Fine, whatever. If that's your thing, but that's not the depth of who I am, and that's not the depth of who you are. And yet, if you can't find guys who you can't trust, you can't have deep and meaningful conversations about what's going wrong in your marriage. You can't have deep and meaningful conversations about what temptations, whether it's drug or alcohol abuse or sex addiction or pornography. You can't have those discussions with guys you can't trust. So we're going to look for virtuous men who you can trust. Number two is we're going to look for people that we're comfortable talking with. Number one is trust. But number two is, does this individual jive with my style? Does this individual, is he a listener? Is he somebody who can be empathetic? Somebody who is not a narcissist, somebody who actually cares deeply about you and other people, who has the heart of service. If that individual doesn't have that heart of service, doesn't have that teacher's heart, I think I get that from Dave Ramsey. This is a guy who maybe you can be friends with and have a drink or whatever with, but this isn't band of brother material. Number three is somebody that you can be accountable to. And here's the deal with accountability. You have to know that they are on the path alongside of you, or that they're out ahead of you. Because if they're not out ahead of you, we'll talk about that part in a second, but if they're not out ahead of you in whatever facet of life you're looking to grow, you can't really be accountable to that person. So for example, if you're trying to lose 30 pounds and get lean and jacked and strong and in shape, and you're trying to be accountable to somebody who's 50, 60, 80 pounds overweight, doesn't work out, doesn't fuel himself right, doesn't get the sleep he needs, doesn't care about his body, doesn't care about his physical, mental, and emotional health, like, you're not going to be accountable to that guy. You need to be accountable to somebody who's at the same level as you, pushing as hard, if not harder than you, or somebody who's out ahead of you, somebody who's already doing what you want to do. That's a person you can be accountable to, because it's aspirational. And you do have to be careful. We're not going to fall into the comparison trap. The comparison trap is saying, well, that guy's so far ahead of me, I can't ever possibly catch up. That's not what I'm talking about here. When I'm talking about being aspirational, I'm talking about looking at men who are doing something you want to do to a better degree than you currently are. And it's not deflating your action. It's inspiring and encouraging your action. Hey, if that guy can do it, I can certainly do it. And then you can be accountable to that person. And you also have to know that he's willing to hold you accountable, that he's willing to say the hard things, that he's willing to say and do what needs to be said and done, so that you will get your butt in gear when you need that out of another man. And it's a man who has to do that. A woman can't do that, right? Because if a woman does it, it almost comes across as nagging or henpecking. We hear this all the time. Your wife nags you about X, Y, and Z. But if a buddy does it, it's different. And there's a place and time where a woman can hold a man accountable to some degree, but it's different than the relationship that a man might have with another man who holds him accountable. Number four is you want to look for somebody to serve. Okay, so now I just talked about being accountable to somebody, but what happens to all those guys who aren't at the level that you want to be at? Do we forsake those men? No, certainly we don't. Okay, now we're not going to go down to their level, but we're going to elevate them to our level. And so it's okay to have guys in your circle who may not be as financially successful as you. who may not be as physically fit as you, who may not have the marriage that you desire to have, who may not have the relationship with the kids that you have with your kids. That's okay. But what you do need to look for is somebody who has the desire to do it and is willing to put forth the work. Because a lot of guys will pay lip service, right? A lot of guys will say, oh, yeah, I want to grow my business. Yeah, I want to get healthy. Yeah, I want to have a thriving marriage. And then you look at their actions and you look at how they spend their time, and that paints a completely different story. They're not interested in that at all based on their actions and the expenditure of their resources. They're interested in the status quo. But if you look at an individual who may be 50 pounds overweight, but he's busting his balls in the gym every day, and he's been doing that for 3 months, that's somebody I'm actually pretty interested in having in my inner circle, because I can motivate that person because A, they're already motivated to do it themselves, and I might be the kick in the butt that they need. And this is somebody who's always proving to me anyways that they're willing to do the work. I don't want to drag people along. I've got enough of my own baggage. I've got enough relationship problems. I've got enough business challenges and obstacles that I need to overcome. I have enough mental and emotional baggage and weight bouncing around in my brain. I don't need another man's. But if a guy's not as far down the tracks as he would like to be, but he's aspirational, he's proving that he's doing the work, that's not baggage for me. That's an opportunity for me to serve. I feel good about that. Because don't we as men feel good when we serve, when we add value to the world, and when we see another man who is striving to do good, and he does good in part because you were there to support him and encourage him along the way. So a lot of these guys will say, never bring these people into your circle, always. No, I think it's okay, within reason, to have somebody who may not be as far down the track come into your circle as long as they meet the motivation criteria. The next one, somebody to push you. Now, I already talked about somebody who's going to motivate, inspire, and say and do the things that need to be done and said. But what I want to suggest to you is don't ever fall into the trap of ego. If, for example, you and I are friends and I'm a little bit more successful in business than you are, and you're asking for advice from me for business, and I'm telling you what you're doing isn't what you should be doing, or here's 5 or 6 things that you can do to improve, and you get all defensive and butthurt about it, and blabber to me about how you're already doing that, it's not working, and drone on and on about why the economy sucks and why your business can't this and why that. That's narcissism. I'm not interested. Again, I don't need that baggage. Okay. If you want somebody who's going to push you, then you have to accept that your ego is going to be wounded, that you're going to have to be a little bit humble, that it's going to expose some weaknesses in you. And it's not going to be fun at all times. I've had mentors who have said some really harsh things. They weren't wrong. They were just harsh. And when I heard them, the first reaction was offense and defense and screw you. What do you know? You don't know anything about my situation. And then I take a step back and I'm like, holy shit, this guy's right. But that requires humility. That requires a greater desire to grow than the desire to maintain the integrity of your fragile, pathetic ego. Tear it down. Be humble like a child. Learn and grow and ask questions and be willing to look stupid at times, because that's exactly what it's going to take to be successful. Small example. Very first time I ever went to jiu-jitsu, the coach said, do you have any jiu-jitsu training? I said, no, I wrestled a couple years in high school, but that's it. He's like, okay, well, why don't you roll with this guy? I didn't even know what that meant. What do you mean roll with this guy? He says, well, I want you to train with him and we'll go live. And all I want you to do is not get submitted. And I'm like, well, what does not submitted mean? What does that mean? And he said, it means that you're in a position where you have to quit because he's hurting you or has you in a compromising situation. And I sized this guy up. He was probably $150, young guy. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll try not to get submitted by this guy. I've got 40, 50 pounds on the guy. I've always prided myself on being somewhat physically capable and somewhat athletic. And I'm telling you what, in 15 seconds, this guy wrapped his legs around my arm and neck and was choking me the life out of me in 15 seconds. And I had to tap. I had to be willing to look foolish. The very first time I ever went hunting, I made one bad shot. I made another shot that I didn't like know if it was actually a pretty decent shot, but I didn't know if it was. And I was with my friend Colin Cottrell, and he could tell you I was all nervous because I made this shot and the buck ran off. I'm like, man, I don't think I hit him. And he ran off. And then we took a little bit to find him, and I couldn't find him. And we finally did. He was only 40 or 50 yards away. So I made a decent shot. But the second deer I ever killed was a day or two later with Colin, and it was with a bow. And I shot the deer a little far back. It was a gut shot, and the deer didn't go down. So we left the field and we went into town and had some dinner. We spent 3 hours trying to find the dang thing, and we went and had some dinner and let the deer settle down, came back out. Fortunately, we found it. It was still alive. We had to kill it, and to watch it die right there, like that was really harsh. That wasn't a fun experience for me. And I felt so dumb because I had wounded this animal, and this animal suffered for 3, 4, 5 hours before we were finally able to put it out of its misery and harvest the meat. The point of the story is not that I made a bad shot, but the point of the story is that you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to look foolish. You have to be willing to ask questions, and you have to be willing to put yourself in environments that you're not comfortable in. When Colin called me and said, hey, let's go hunting, I'm like, I've never been hunting. And he's like, well, that's why I want you to go. I'm like, well, great. What do I need? He's like, you need this rifle and you need a bow. I'm like, I don't have either. He's like, go buy it. So I did. I went into the archery store, and I went to Cabela's or something and bought myself a firearm. And I was asking the guy, like, what should I buy? I felt stupid. I remember when I went and took my hunter safety exam, and I walked in there, and it was me as a 7-year-old guy at the time, 35, 36, 37-year-old guy at the time. I walked in there, and there's like 28-year-olds all doing their hunter's ed course. And I'm 35 years old. I felt like a freaking fool, but that's what it takes to be successful. So get over yourself. All right. And find somebody who's going to push you to overcome looking foolish. And then the last one is somebody to serve you. I talked about this a little bit. A servant's heart, somebody who cares in a lot of ways, cares more about your success than they do about their own. Somebody who's going to sacrifice, somebody who's going to put time into you, who's going to pour into you. A great example of that, a good friend of mine, and a lot of you guys know him, Steve Weatherford. He called me, messaged me 4 or 5 days ago. And look, he didn't ask me to share this or anything, and this is kind of personal, but it speaks into him and who he is as a human being. And he said, how are things going, man? And I said, they're going pretty good. I'm struggling in some areas and doing pretty well in others. And he said, what are you struggling with? And I said, spirituality. He's like, man, you need that in your life. I said, I know. I woke up this morning and I prayed and I started my day off with prayer, but it's a struggle sometimes. And he said to me, hey, I'll help you with that. Every Monday morning at 9:00, I'll call you and we'll pray together. He doesn't have to do that. He's got 1,000 other things. He's got like 17 kids, and he's got his beautiful wife, and he's got his business, and he's got his ministry, and he's got all these other things going on in his life. He doesn't need to call me at 9:00 every Monday morning to pray with me. And yet he does, because he cares and he wants to serve, and he has a servant's heart. Those are the kind of guys that I want in my life. Those are the kind of men that I want in my circle. That's the kind of man I want to be for other people. All right. So now that we have some qualifiers and what to look for with your band of brothers and why this can be so important, let's go ahead and talk about how to build this, like where to look for this. Because a lot of guys will say, Ryan, what you're saying makes sense. I need a band of brothers. I need help. I need this. I need that, but I don't know where to go. That's a lazy man's response, number one. That's somebody who knows what they want, but isn't willing to put forth any effort. I mean, imagine this saying, I'd really like a girlfriend, but I don't know where all the girls are. Man, spend some time thinking about what you might be able to do to get yourself around some attractive women. Same thing with the guys. Well, I don't know. There's no good guys around, and like all the guys care about is this and that. That isn't true. It's not true at all. There's millions of motivated, driven, ambitious men. How do I know? Look at our social media reach. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of men tuning in the podcast, social media accounts, YouTube, going to our events, doing all the things. They're all motivated and ambitious to varying degrees. So I know they're out there. Where do we go to band with these guys? Number one, go where the good guys are. All right. We know where they are. They're at the gym. They're going to different meetups based on different hobbies and activities and recreational pursuits. Go to business meetups and luncheons, Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, Toastmasters, Business Network International. They're there. Just jump online. Where's my local chamber? When does it meet? It meets for lunch every Wednesday. Good. Go to that. Go to events. Every podcast you listen to, including mine, we all have events. We do virtual summits. We have local meetups. We have big regional events that you can attend. Yeah, they cost some money. So you say you want this. If you want it, you got to invest. And that means time, energy, resources, money to get around other motivated men. And the other thing I would suggest is even masterminds. We have our Brotherhood, the Iron Council. That's a huge organization that helps guys meet up. I'm seeing guys go on hunts together. Last week when I was on my hunt, 3 or 4 of the guys from our Iron Council came. Other guys are meeting up and doing Spartan races and hikes. They're all out there. You just have to be willing to put yourself in those environments. Number 2, when you do go into those environments, add value into these men's lives. And what I mean by that is asking them questions about what their pain points are, what their struggles are, what their goals and desires and ambitions are, what they're trying to accomplish, what's getting in the way of them accomplishing that, and then giving. And here's the caveat. This is very, very important. Giving without the expectation of anything in return. Let me say that again for emphasis. Giving without the expectation of anything in return. That to me is the definition of value. Giving something meaningful and not expecting anything back in return. This is, you know people who are trying to game the value system, right? What they'll do is they'll say, well, hey, I'll offer you this free course. And if you like it, then you can buy all my products. That's not value. That's them marketing to you, cloaked in disguise as this initial value. It's like a drug dealer. Okay, a drug dealer is going to give you a little small bag of heroin or coke or fentanyl or whatever the drug of choice is for free. So is he being valuable? No, he's giving it to you for free so you get hooked on it. So next time you come, he can sell it to you. That's not value. Okay, value is just giving. When you guys listen to this podcast, I'm not coercing you or manipulating you or strong-arming you or making you feel guilty for not buying our merchandise or going to an event. Now, I'll offer those things, sure. But I'm adding value regardless of whether or not you purchase a beanie or a hat or go to an event or join the Brotherhood. This is just value for the sake of value. So look for what people are doing and what they need and what their pain points are. Case in point, Steve Weatherford. There's nothing I can give to Steve that he doesn't already have. He's got a great family life. He's dialed in with his spirituality. He does very well financially. What can I possibly do for Steve that he can't already do for himself? And yet he serves me because he wants to add value, because he actually cares about the other person, not what that person can do in return. Next, never do alone what you could do with someone else. So if you're gonna move this weekend, call a few friends. All right. Like, I know that's hard because I want to do this on my own. I can do this by myself. Like, I don't need any help. I appreciate the independence. Don't do it. If you're trying to grow a band of brothers, find ways to get around other guys. If there's a project you're working on, maybe you're changing the oil in your car, or you're moving, or there's some sort of business hang up that you're dealing with, or you need to do some landscaping in the yard. Call a friend, call a buddy. If you want to watch UFC fight nights this weekend, I think there's fight nights this weekend, then call 2 friends. Guys, I just got the pay-per-view fights for tonight, the UFC fights for tonight. I've got a chip bar. We're going to have some drinks. Ladies are out doing their thing. So it's just going to be the guys, no kids, just the guys. And come on over. I mean, that's huge. Never do alone what you can do with someone else, and look for ways to create environments where men can congregate. I'll get a little bit more into that here next, because the next statement is organize events. So an event could be anything. It could be a Bible study group. It could be a UFC fight night. It could be a hunt. It could be a Saturday hike. It could be a cooking class, a painting class. It could be anything. A barn raising. Sometimes I think we need to be more like the Amish and do barn raisings together. An event can be anything. It could be golf. You want to go golfing this weekend? Again, never do alone what you could do with someone else. So you call the golf course up. You're like, hey, I want a tee time at 7 a.m. and I need a foursome for 7 a.m. You might not even have the 4 guys yet. You've got you, but the 3 other guys are missing. Hey, get on the phone. Guys, Steve, I've got a golf thing at 7 o'clock. Can you make it? Yeah, I can make it. I'll be there. Joe, golf at 7. Can you make it? No, I can't be there. That's right. Next time. John, 7 a.m. Can you be there? Yep, I can be there. And you fill it up. And then it's not weird either, because you're not asking guys on dates, because it's a group thing. And it's like, hey, I've got 3 open spots. You're one I thought of. You want to go. I've done that with hunts. This hunt I went on last week, we had 8 spots. We had 3 or 4 of them filled, and I started calling, and, we filled the other 3 or 4 spots because I wanted these guys there. So organize events. Next, express gratitude to these men. When you get done with a hunt, express gratitude. One of the things I did on this hunt is I called a sponsor, Origin, and another sponsor, Montana Knife Company. And I said, hey, I've got a big hunt. I'm trying to get these guys gifts. Can you send a few knives? Can you send some camo? We'll take some pictures. We'll post them online. We'll help you guys out. Is that something you could do? And they said, yeah, we can do that. And so I brought these guys camo. I brought them hunting knives, because I'm grateful that they're friends, and I'm grateful that they're there. And I want to express and show my gratitude to them. Again, another way of adding value. I didn't give them anything in expectation that they would give me something. It just feels good to give. I'm grateful for these guys. They're friends. They're brothers. And if I can get them some camo, some Origin camo, or if I can get them a Montana Knife Company knife, then that's a cool way for me to express gratitude. Constantly express gratitude. You know who's really good at this? Bedros Keuilian. Every couple of weeks, couple of months, I'll get an email from Bedros or a text, and he'll say, hey, Rye, I just want to let you know I'm thinking about you. Keep leading from the front. I listened to that podcast you did with so-and-so, or I saw that post you made. Sounds like things are going good. Love your brother. Appreciate you. Have a great day. Consistently for years, 5, 6, 7 years now, he's been doing that. There's no coincidence to me that Bedros is an extremely successful individual. He does the small things that most other people won't, and that's expressing gratitude to the people he cares about. Next, have a plan for consistent communication. Bedros is a prime example of that. Make reasons for you to get together with other guys. Fight night is a great reason. There's a fight night, that's an excuse to get together with guys. If you have an extra ticket to a sporting event, that's an excuse to get together with somebody else. If you're going to go to dinner with 2 guys, you might as well go to dinner with 5. So get some reservations. Just be consistent. Another person who's really good at this is Jordan Harbinger. He's got a database of people that he reaches out to. I haven't heard from Jordan in a while. So if he's listening, I haven't heard from you in a while, but I used to hear from Jordan quite a bit, quite often. Like clockwork. Every 2-3 months. Hey, Rye, what's going on, man? Hope you're good. Thinking about you. Family's good here. We're just chugging along. Business has been good. Let me know if you need anything. Very simple, nice little touch point. I look for reasons to communicate with people. I might see a book, for example, of Jack Carr's in the airport as I'm traveling. And I'll just take a quick little picture of it. And I'll say, hey, Jack, saw your book here. Sometimes I'll joke around. I'll say, yeah, I saw your book in the number 2 spot, and I took it out of there and I put it somewhere where people wouldn't find it because I wouldn't want them to read this book. Like, just joking around, right? But that's an ability for me to communicate with somebody that I want to maintain a relationship with. When I go to a new town, I'm going to go through my Rolodex, date myself a little bit, go through my Rolodex, and I'm going to look like, what podcast guests have I had on in this area? What people would I like to meet? Can I do a meetup here and an event here and meet more people? This is how you stay in constant contact with others. And you can use CRMs. What does that stand for? Customer relationships management or something like that. But you can use CRMs. And important contacts you can drop into, I use one called Insightly. You can drop people in there, and you can set it up. If you want to talk to this person every 3 months, for example, you can set up an alert, email me every 3 months with this guy's number and pull up his notes, and I'll look at it and be like, okay, I haven't talked with John for a while. John went on a hunt and he just had a new kid. And so I can send him a text and say, hey, how's baby Stella or whatever her name is, right? Little ways to create touch points with people. And then the last tip I would give you guys, and then we'll wrap things up today because I'm giving you a lot of information, and I hope you're taking notes or you're going to go back and take notes on this because it's so critically important, is that as men, we should be focusing on the activity, not necessarily the relationship building. So if you take the way that men relate versus the way women relate relationally face to face, knee to knee, like looking at each other. So this is why women, we think they gossip, right? Because they're talking, and it's not bad, by the way. They're trying to relate. It can get toxic, but it's not always toxic just because they're talking about friends and neighbors and everything else, but they're trying to find commonalities, ways to connect, and they're doing it face to face. But if you look at men, we're side to side, and then we're faced outward towards a common objective or against a common enemy. So if you take hunting, just because that's been on my mind this fall, and it usually is when all 8 of us on that last hunt went out for our hunts, we would go do our thing and we would come back in and we would talk about how that sit went. You know, maybe somebody missed a bad shot and we can talk about why they missed a shot and what they could do better to improve. Or maybe they made a great shot and we tracked down their deer. And, you know, Ron Christopher, he's a member of the Iron Council, shot this beautiful, beautiful buck. Very first buck he's ever shot with a bow, I think with any weapon. But we shot this thing with a bow, and what a tremendous job he did. He brought it back. I sat there and I helped. I took, an hour or whatever it took. We helped him cape it because he wants to mount it. We helped him skin it, and we helped him break it down and gut it and clean it all out. It's something he's not familiar with. So we taught him how to do that. The relationship building was ancillary to the activity. The relationship builds in the activity. The activity itself is not the relationship building like it would be with women. So that's why I say golf, fight night, hunting, activities, and then the relationship building happens within the dynamic of the activity. Okay? Bible study is another one. You're not there to build relationships. Relationships will take place, but you're there to learn more about the gospel. That's the purpose. And in the meantime, you're going to find this guy's pretty insightful. I'd like to know more about him. And you build a relationship that way. I hope that helps. Let me recap really quickly so we can reiterate. When we're looking for people who we should be involved with, it's someone that you can trust. It's somebody that you're comfortable talking to. It's somebody that you can be accountable to. It's somebody who you can serve, somebody who's going to push you because you're going to let go of your ego, and then somebody who is going to serve you. And then when it comes to how to build these out, go where the good men are: gyms, meetups, business organizations, masterminds, events, et cetera, add value to those men's lives, again, with the expectation of nothing in return. Number 3, never do alone what you could do with someone else. Number 4, organize events. Number 5, express gratitude like Bedros does. Number 6, I think, have a plan for consistent communication. Insightly is a great CRM you can use for that. And number 7, focus on the activity, a wholesome, righteous, virtuous activity, not necessarily the relationship building, because the relationships will come as a result of the activity. I hope that serves you guys. Please make sure you check out store.orderoman.com for our new merchandise. Check out my good friends, Montana Knife Company, and use the code ORDEROFMAN at checkout. I also mentioned Origin. If you want some new hunt gear, camo, amazing camo, you can check that out at originusa.com. Use the code ORDER at checkout there. And then if you want to check out our Brotherhood, the Iron Council, It's going to be opening up in about a month, a little over a month. You can check that out at orderofman.com/Iron Council. All right, you guys, have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Spend some time this weekend building out your band of brothers, because there is immense power in brotherhood. All right, guys, let's go out there, take action, build our brotherhoods, and become the men we are meant to be.